Welcome, curious minds, to MetaBookNook, deep dives for curious minds. Settle in by the digital fire because today, well, we're embarking on a really fascinating journey. We're diving into this small but mighty book that completely challenges our fundamental understanding of success. And look, this isn't about complex economic theories or, convoluted business models. Not at all. Instead, it's about profound, surprisingly simple truths, all wrapped up in a really compelling story.
That's absolutely right. Our mission today, kind of digging into the pages of this insightful book, is to unpack the journey of a young man named Joe. He's the quintessential go getter. You know the type. Joe believes success is all about hard work, relentless drive, and, well, getting. Pure and simple. He's deep in this desperate quest to land a huge deal, something he's even nicknamed the Big Kahuna, Big Pressure. And we'll follow his transformation as he discovers a completely different philosophy, one that basically flips everything he thought he knew right on its head. It centers instead on the power of giving.
Yeah, and when we first meet Joe, he is absolutely stuck in that go-getter mode. He's this ambitious young executive at Classen Hill Trust Corporation, working incredibly hard, working fast, but feeling completely, utterly stuck. Like he's spinning his wheels, he's struggling to meet his quota, desperately trying to land the big Karuna account. And honestly, he's focused entirely on what he calls clout and leverage, the traditional hallmarks of what he thinks will bring him success, but he's just hitting wall after wall, and you can feel the clock ticking on his career. So, in a moment of sheer desperation, Joe's colleague, Melanie, she kind of nudges him toward this eccentric, maybe seemingly unproductive coworker named Gus. And Gus, he just hands Joe a contact for a legendary consultant, this mysterious figure known only as Pindar or sometimes the chairman. It feels like a total long shot, right? But Joe's got nothing left to lose at this point.
Right. And this Pindar character is truly something else. He actually agrees to meet with Joe, which is surprising enough, but not for any fee. Nope. Instead, it's on one really extraordinary condition. Joe must immediately apply each of the five laws of stratospheric success the very same day he learns them. Pindar is crystal clear about this. This isn't about thinking or talking or debating the laws.
Mhm.
This is about doing. Now, if Joe doesn't apply the law before he goes to sleep that night, their meetings are just over,
Oh,
done.
wow. That's a pretty intense condition, isn't it? Talk about high stakes from day one. And that really sets the stage for Joe's incredible life changing week. Each day, Pindar introduces Joe to a remarkable character who embodies one of these laws. So let's jump into the first one, the law of value. Okay, so Joe's first meeting with Pindar isn't in some grand corporate office like you might expect from a legendary consultant, right? And no, instead they meet at this bustling, very unpretentious Italian American cafe, down to earth. And there, Joe is introduced to the chef, a portly, jovial man named Ernesto.
And Ernesto's story, his backstory, it's truly remarkable. He started out as a humble hot dog vendor, literally pushing a cart on the street. And yet now, he's become a multimillionaire real estate mogul, owns like half a dozen restaurants, hundreds of millions in commercial property. It's amazing. His success, as the book really shows, wasn't about serving the quote unquote best hot dogs. No, it was about creating the best outdoor dining experience. He totally transformed buying a simple hot dog into an unforgettable event. Fair for kids, remembering their names, their birthdays, their favorite things, little details. He didn't just sell food, he provided a genuine connection, real delight, making everyone feel genuinely appreciated.
Right. So the first law Pindar shares is this: your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. And Joe's initial reaction? Pure disbelief. I mean, it sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy, doesn't it? Completely backwards. Why on earth would you give away more value than you're paid for? It just seems totally counterintuitive to that whole go getter thing.
It absolutely does. And Joe really struggles with that. You can feel it. But Ernesto explains that the first question we should be asking isn't, does it make money? No, the question is, does it serve? Does it add value to others? That's the starting point. If the answer to that question is yes, then profitability, well, it naturally follows. It's almost a byproduct. It's not presented as some clever strategy to get more. It's framed as a fundamental way of life, really driven by a deep love for what you actually do.
Hmm. So the core insight from Ernesto is this: true value isn't measured by how much you charge, but by how much you exceed expectations, turning a simple transaction into something memorable, an unforgettable experience. That's apparently where real wealth is built.
Precisely. And Joe's immediate application of this law, oh, it's truly difficult for him, painful even. He gets back to the office, finds out he lost a contract he was counting on. Big disappointment. Then, right after that, he gets a call from a lawyer, Jim Galloway. And despite his massive disappointment, Joe, right there on the spot, recommends a competitor at Barnes. He knows Barnes has better overseas connections for what Galloway needs. Now, this act of giving more in value to a competitor, it seems completely illogical from his old perspective. You could practically hear him muttering to himself, this guy just blows me off and I give him a referral and throw some good business at a competitor. He's really wrestling with it.
Oh, definitely. He really had to push through that one. Okay, so having grappled with this radical idea of giving more value than you take, Joe's journey continues. He keeps challenging his core beliefs about success. His next encounter sheds light on how that immense value actually translates into tangible reward, which leads us neatly to the second law, the law of compensation. And Joe's next meeting takes him to a place he absolutely never expected for a business meeting, a kindergarten conference room. Seriously, it's filled with modeling clay and finger paintings at a company called Learning Systems for Children, Inc. And here, he meets the surprisingly young CEO, Nicole Martin.
Nicole's journey is just fascinating. She was this really talented grade school teacher, but felt so constrained,
Hmm.
only being able to impact maybe 20 or 25 kids at a time. She developed these educational games, and then by collaborating with others like a software engineer and a marketing expert, she turned them into a global educational software company. Now she reaches millions of children worldwide. Her take is that her compensation is directly proportional to how many lives you touch. Simple as that.
And Nicole shares her own initial internal conflict with Pindar. It's really relatable. Growing up, she believed you could either get rich or you could do good, but you couldn't possibly do both. It was one or the other. I think a lot of us can probably relate to that kind of internal conflict, can't we? That feeling of limitation.
Absolutely. It's a common belief system. But Nicole realized her old belief system just wasn't serving her anymore. So she simply, well, she decided to change it just like that. And this really highlights the powerful idea that our reality is often, made up in our own minds. We construct it and we actually have the power to rewrite our own stories, our own beliefs. So the law of compensation basically means you get to determine your level of compensation by finding ways to serve more people. There are really no inherent limitations.
Okay, so the takeaway from Nicole is pretty clear then. Your income isn't limited by your direct effort alone, it's amplified by how many lives you genuinely serve, creating almost limitless potential for compensation. It's about the breadth of your impact, how broadly you cast that net of value.
Exactly. And for Joe's immediate application of this law, he takes Rachel's famous coffee. Remember that amazing brew he tasted at Pindar's home? Well, he gets some, and then he personally delivers customized cups, complete with cream and sugar preferences noted, to every single coworker on his floor.
Oh man, I can just imagine Joe feeling completely ridiculous doing that, walking around with coffee cups. What kind of internal struggle must that have been for him? It seems so.
Well, simple, almost trivial compared to chasing the big kahuna.
It does, doesn't it, on the surface? But he pushes past that awkwardness, that feeling of foolishness. He feels completely silly, yes, but he is actively, physically serving them one by one, going desk to desk. It's a very personal, tangible act of giving value, even if it's just coffee.
Okay, moving on. Next up, the law of influence. This time, Joe meets Sam Rosen, a financial advisor in a truly lavish skyscraper office. Big contrast to the kindergarten room. Sam, who used to be an insurance agent, is now this top philanthropist who single handedly brings in something like three-quarters of his entire branch's money. And Sam's network, as he describes it, isn't about traditional contacts or keeping track of who owes him what. Not at all. He talks about having an army of personal walking ambassadors. These are people who are personally invested in seeing him succeed because he's so deeply invested in them. The core principle he emphasizes is just stop keeping score. Forget the whole idea of 50-50 or even win-win. He argues that win-win often just means carefully tracking who owes what, tit for tat. Instead, he says, focus 100% on the other person's win. Put them first. His belief is, if you place their interests first, genuinely your interests will always be taken care of. It just happens.
That's a beautiful ideal, isn't it? 100% on the other person's win. But I mean, in the rough and tumble of business, how do you protect yourself? How do you avoid being taken advantage of if you're always giving without expecting something back immediately? It feels like it goes against every instinct to, protect your own.
It's a totally valid concern. It's certainly what Joe struggles with initially. You see him reflecting on his own ingrained you owe me one mentality. He realizes how deep it runs in his thinking, and frankly, probably in most of our cultural conditioning.
Mm.
But the book suggests that by giving without that immediate expectation, you actually create this deeper well of trust and goodwill. And that naturally flows back to you in really unexpected ways. It kind of redefines what protection even means. It's less defensive, more generative.
Hmm. Generative. I like that. So, what Sam teaches us is pretty profound. True influence isn't built on reciprocity or scorekeeping, but on relentlessly placing others' interests first, genuinely first, forging an almost unbreakable bond of trust and advocacy.
Exactly. And the deepest application of this particular law, interestingly, comes not in Joe's business dealings, but in his personal life. Joe gets home that night, finds his wife Susan completely exhausted. She's deeply stressed from her own demanding job. Now, instead of doing his usual half hour of complaining about his day or expecting her to listen to his problems, which was apparently their unspoken 50-50 marital exchange, my turn, your turn way, he chooses to listen to her
Yeah.
fully, without interruption, without expecting reciprocation. He's trying to embody the other person's win right there at home. And his initial attempts, they feel awkward, even foolish to him. He doesn't know what he's doing, really. But Susan's heartfelt note the next morning confirms the profound impact of his simple generosity. He just listened. He heard her, really heard her.
That's incredibly powerful. Yeah, I think we've all been in situations where we realize just listening, truly listening without trying to fix things or jump in with our own stuff can be the most generous act of all.
Absolutely. It often is the most valuable thing.
Okay, so moving on to the fourth law, the law of authenticity. For this one, Joe and Pindar attend a sales symposium to hear Deborah Davenport, who's a truly renowned realtor.
And Deborah's story is incredibly powerful,
Hmm.
quite moving, actually. After her husband left her, she became this struggling realtor, felt overage and underqualified. She failed using every single sales technique imaginable, tried everything in the book, nothing worked. Her breakthrough finally came when she stopped trying to sell altogether. She just let herself have a good time with a client. She became a friend, genuinely cared, focused on making them feel good. She realized, she said, she had nothing to add but myself, and apparently that was exactly what had been missing. Just her.
Wow. That leads to this huge aha moment for Joe, and honestly, for us as listeners too. Deborah emphasizes that something like 90% of people's skills, and therefore success, comes from who you are, fundamentally not what techniques you use. She states quite bluntly, as long as you're trying to be someone else or putting on some act or behavior someone else taught you, you have no possibility of truly reaching people. The
Yeah.
core, she says, is simply to be a person, be real.
Right. And this resonates so deeply with Joe's own growing self awareness at this point in the week. In a really powerful, vulnerable moment, he finally confesses to Pindar his true initial motive for seeking him out in the first place.
Yeah.
It wasn't about genuine success principles, it was purely to gain clout and leverage, to land that big kahuna account. He admits it. And this act of vulnerability, of honesty, it's a profound embrace of his own authenticity. He's finally being real about his intentions.
So, Deborah's journey highlights this vital truth. Your most powerful asset isn't some technique or a carefully crafted facade. It's the genuine, unfiltered you, because true connection, real influence, it stems from authentic being. And it's right around this point that the long awaited reveal of the connector happens. Remember Gus, Joe's seemingly unproductive, slightly odd coworker. Well, surprise. It turns out Gus is actually a multimillionaire, a silent partner in many ventures, and a living embodiment of all these go giver principles. He's been discreetly connecting all the incredibly successful individuals Joe has met throughout the week, pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Yeah, Gus. He exemplifies the entire philosophy without ever drawing any attention to himself. He's the ultimate connector, but quietly.
Okay, so now we arrive at the final law, the fifth one, the law of receptivity. Joe is still trying to figure out who the mysterious Friday guest is going to be. He's assuming it will be the connector, Gus, right? Makes sense. Pindar, however, has a different, maybe even more profound lesson in store for Joe.
Yeah, Pindar presents this really profound paradox here. He directly challenges that common saying, it is better to give than to receive.
Hmm.
He actually argues that trying to only give without receiving is, in his words, insane and even arrogant.
Hmm.
He uses these great analogies like breathing, you have to exhale and inhale. You can't just do one, or the heart, it has to relax and contract. It's a cycle. He illustrates that giving and receiving are fundamentally interconnected, completely mutually dependent. You need both. If you don't receive, he explains, you actually shut down the flow, not just for yourself, but for everyone involved in the exchange.
Ah, okay. This is the ultimate aha moment for Joe, isn't it? The final piece. Pindar states it plainly. The secret to getting is giving, which Joe has been learning all week.
Yeah.
And the secret to giving is making yourself open to receiving. That's the key. And that's the moment Joe realizes that the Friday guest, the person meant to learn this final crucial law, it's him. He's the student. He's the one who needed to learn how to be open to receiving all the good that comes from giving.
Exactly. The ultimate lesson from Pindar is this beautiful, complete loop. To truly give effectively, you must also be open to receiving gracefully, completing the circle of abundance and allowing that positive flow for everyone.
And knowing this, understanding this final law, it leads to Joe's complete transformation. Because later that Friday, he finds out he officially lost the Big Kahuna account. It's confirmed he missed his quota. The old Joe would be devastated, right? But the new Joe, he's fundamentally shifted. He's no longer that anxious, desperate go getter.
Mm.
Instead, he calmly starts cleaning the office coffee machine, just tidying up. It's this quiet act of selfless giving, unconcerned with immediate result or what's in it for him. He's just doing what needs to be done, contributing value in a small way.
And here's the beautiful payoff from the book, the punchline, almost. Just as he finishes cleaning, the phone rings. It's Neil Hansen, the very competitor who actually won the Big Kahuna account. And guess what? He's in a major jam, a real bind. And who referred him to Joe? Ed Barnes. Remember him. Joe's very first act of giving value back on Monday, recommending a competitor. It came back around. Hansen needs a supplier urgently for premium top shelf coffee for a massive international hotel and cruise line deal. It's described as a humongous kahuna, even bigger. And Joe just smiles. Because now, of course, he's connected to Rachel and her amazing coffee expertise from earlier in the week, and he confidently says, I just might know someone.
Wow. So Joe, the former go-getter, the one obsessed with clout and leverage, he ends up becoming a founding partner in Rachel's Famous Coffee, a global enterprise built entirely on the very principles he spent the week learning and struggling with. He's no longer chasing deals, they're literally coming to him because he learned how to become a true go-giver. It's just a complete transformation of his whole approach to success, to business, probably to life itself. What a powerful yet really quite simple shift in mindset, isn't it? Going from go getter to go giver, as Joe's journey in this book demonstrates so well, it really emphasizes how these principles, when you truly apply them, not just think about them, they create a totally different kind of success, one that seems to flow much more naturally from a place of genuine service and an open heart.
It's a really profound reminder, I think, that these seemingly counterintuitive ideas aren't just abstract theories you read in a book. They're presented as actual principles that, when you put them into practice, day by day, can fundamentally change how you interact with the world and, consequently, what you receive back from it. It really starts with changing your internal state, your mindset, not just your external actions.
You know, this deep dive into the go giver really reveals a radical idea. What if that relentless pursuit of personal success, as we traditionally define it, is actually, well, fundamentally flawed? What if the real key to abundance, to true prosperity, lies not in chasing the big kahuna, whatever your kahuna might be, but in becoming the kind of person who consistently creates so much value for others that those big opportunities inevitably find you? It's something to think about, isn't it? We invite you to consider how maybe shifting towards these principles could reshape not just your career, perhaps, but your entire perspective on prosperity and contribution. Thank you so much for joining us on MetaBookNook for this deep dive into The Go Giver. You can find more information about the book itself and, of course, where to purchase it if you're interested, right there in the deep dive description. We hope you tune in next time for another MetaBookNook deep dive.